Joining me now, Andrew McCarthy, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, federal prosecutor, and now National Review contributing editor. Great to have you with us, Andy. The Gang of Eight gets to look at some documents, so we're told. This is the same Gang of Eight led by Paul Ryan, who agreed with Trey Gowdy that it's just fine if you call a spy an informant on the part of the FBI and the Department of Justice and put them in the presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, well, I don't know how he can endorse what Congressman Gowdy had to say when Congressman Gowdy hasn't seen the documents yet. So, one guy hasn't seen the documents. The other guy says, I agree with the guy who hasn't seen the documents yet.
Can I hazard an answer? And that is, this is a speaker who doesn't know much about facts, but he clearly understands who his corporate masters are and will do whatever, ever they want done.
Yeah, well, the one thing I'll say about it is I was heartened by the fact that Chairman Nunes says, now this is all supposed to take place in the context of a Gang of Eight briefing, right? He says, I don't need a briefing, I need the documents. Right. And when I was a prosecutor, I didn't need an explanation for what the documents say. I can read the documents myself, thank you very much. Show me the documents. So that's what they need to see.
Well, and on Ryan himself, I mean, this is a man who felt necessary to side with Trey Gowdy, who's been on several sides of the same discussion himself. And Ryan is a man who, frankly, is a lame duck, who has very little political grasp and almost none, certainly, of intelligence issues. And Devin Nunes has been a heroic figure in bringing to light as much as possible of what the Department of Justice and FBI have been hiding.
Yeah, because what he's after is to try to find out why all this happened. So we've had one of these Washington things for the last 3 or 4 weeks, it seems that way, about whether it's a spy or an informant, which to my mind is about the silliest. I mean, even by Washington standards, this is one of the more silly discussions you've seen before, because no matter how you slice it, what they used was a covert operative who they sent in to get information. So you can call it a spy or a fink or a rat or an informant or what have you. And usually this is done by euphemism or hyperbole, depending on whose ox is being gored, right? But what we need to know is why. Because we have a norm in this country that the incumbent administration is not supposed to use these awesome counterintelligence powers against its political opposition unless there's a really good reason. So let's hear what the reason was.
The reason was, I think it is inferential logic leads you to only one conclusion. It's because Barack Obama, the President of the United States, wanted his intelligence heads of at least 3 agencies to spy for the purpose of political advantage in the election of 2016 for the candidate that he was supporting, one Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of evidence to support that. I don't want to get out in front of, because we don't have all of it, and I think Nunes is quite right. We need to get the documents and the answers, and then we can make conclusive judgments on it.
If we weren't watching a counter-truth operation led by, suddenly now, the Speaker of the House himself against the President, I would be somewhat more constrained, perhaps, but certainly not now with him in full attack on the President. Let's turn to the issue of McCabe, Andrew McCabe, the number 2 guy who was fired at the FBI. This is a guy looking for immunity before the Judiciary Committee. You write, as always eloquently in the National Review, that it shouldn't happen at all.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the people who think it should happen because they're so tired of waiting for answers from the Justice Department and the FBI. They say, let's get this guy in a chair in front of a national TV audience in a congressional hearing, and if we have to give him immunity, fine, but let's get answers. The problem with that, Lou, is if you give him immunity, even though it's only use immunity, meaning they can't use against him the things that he says in the hearing.
For another prosecution.
Right. The effect of that ends up being it makes it very, very complicated, sometimes impossible to prosecute him. And the better way to go about this always, especially when you have a guy who's already been referred to the Justice Department for making false statements, is...
Andrew McCabe.
Right. So let's see how the criminal prosecution goes. look what Mueller has done in his investigation, right? When he's got guys who have lied to agents, he uses that as a hammer to get them to give him everything they have, but under the auspices of a plea agreement where they have to cooperate.
There's something that within me that resists the idea that Robert Mueller be held up as a model for anything, as a special.
How about
counsel.
like a what's good for the goose kind of thing? You know,
No, I'm full tilt.
Yeah.
Disgusted with the conduct of Robert Mueller and his band of left-wing archangels that he's assembled to staff his investigation. But I am thrilled to have the opportunity to talk with you very quickly as we wrap up. Your thoughts about what Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, what you expect. Is it going to be a blockbuster that we're going to see from him on the 14th of June?
I wouldn't say a blockbuster because I think that gets our expectations up higher than they ought to be. But in my experience, I've known Horowitz for a long time. He's a straight shooter, and I expect a workmanlike report that'll have a lot of information in it.
All right. Andrew McCarthy, great to have you here, Andy. Thanks.
Thanks, Lou.
Appreciate it.